Since August 13th, large-scale anti-government protests have erupted in Serbia. In the capital Belgrade, over 3,000 demonstrators clashed with supporters of the ruling party. Both sides threw flare bombs and fireworks at each other, creating a chaotic scene. Riot police intervened, using tear gas to disperse the crowds and force the protesters to leave the area. The protests, led by students, began in Serbia's second-largest city, Novi Sad, after a tragic accident at Novi Sad Station, which was undergoing renovations by a Chinese company. The roof collapsed in November, killing 16 people. This incident raised doubts about the quality of work by Chinese contractors and sparked public anger over the long-standing corruption and negligence of the ruling party. The protests quickly spread to other cities across the country and have been intensifying for the past 9 months. Some analysts suggest that the recent escalation of protests may be linked to the Serbian president's upcoming visit to China. According to a statement from the Serbian president's office, Chinese General Secretary Xi Jinping invited him to Beijing to attend the 80th anniversary of China's victory in the War of Resistance against Japan. The anniversary takes place on September 3rd. During a meeting with local residents in the northern Serbian town of Banstol on August 3rd, Vučić announced that he will visit China from September 1st to 5th. He said he may also visit President Putin there, and Trump if he attends. On July 26, Vučić that Xi Jinping had promised to meet any request he had during a victory ceremony in Moscow, marking the defeat of fascism in May. Vučić requested assistance in rebuilding a factory in Serbia. Clearly, Vučić's relationship with the Chinese Communist Party is close. Chinese state media even described the Sino-Serbian relationship as ironclad, even stronger than the China-Pakistan relationship. However, the people of Serbia may not share this view, as protesters are demanding that Vučić step down. This protest has also gained traction on Chinese social media. While Chinese state reports heavily criticized the protesting students, focusing on President Vučić's claim that unidentified foreign forces were behind the unrest, implying that Western countries were orchestrating the protests. Meanwhile, voices from the public hinted at a desire for political change in Serbia. In the video comment sections, some pointed out, they want to live in Poland and Romania. What's wrong with that? Others subtly remarked, Serbia is about to quit the group, suggesting a potential withdrawal from China's Belt and Road Initiative. The Novi Sad railway station, which triggered the protests, is a major hub on the Hungary-Serbia Railway. This railway is a flagship project of China's cooperation with Central and Eastern European countries, and is a key project under the Belt and Road Initiative. From 2021 to 2024, Chinese companies, including China Railway International Company and China Communications Construction Company, undertook large-scale renovations of the station. On July 5, 2024, the station's renovations were completed, but on November 1st, the concrete roof suddenly collapsed. On the day of the accident, the 48-meter-long concrete roof fell onto the sidewalk, killing 14 people on the spot and injuring 3 others. 2 women, trapped under the rubble for several hours, had to have amputations due to severe injuries. One of them died from her injuries 16 days later, and a 19-year-old man also passed away from his injuries on March 21st. Public transportation at the station was also forced to stop. Without a doubt, this was another tragic accident caused by poor construction quality, often referred to as tofu drag engineering. Public opinion has turned against the construction quality of Chinese companies, questioning whether safety standards were ignored, while also expressing dissatisfaction with the entrenched corruption and negligence in national infrastructure projects. The impact of the Novi Sad railway station goes far beyond a simple safety issue. It has sparked long-standing public resentment. Students took the lead, organizing vigils to mourn the victims and express dissatisfaction with the government. However, the event quickly escalated into large-scale protests, which spread from Novi Sad to other cities like Belgrade, Niš, and Valjevo. By March 2025, protests had spread to over 400 cities and towns. Students launched blockades in campuses across the country and organized mass protests demanding a transparent, independent investigation into the incident and accountability for those responsible. The protests hit the Serbian government hard, leading to the resignation of Prime Minister Miloš Vučević on January 28th and the dissolution of his cabinet. However, the authorities failed to take action regarding the investigation, and by May, the protesters shifted their demands toward calling for early parliamentary elections to end President Vučić's rule. Their demands also expanded to broader social issues, including media censorship, government corruption, and the lack of democratic freedoms. On June 28th, during Serbia's St. Vitus's Day, Belgrade saw the largest protest so far. Serbian police estimated around 36,000 participants, while independent protest monitoring group Archive of Public Gatherings estimated the number to be about 140,000. Unlike previous peaceful demonstrations, this protest saw direct clashes between the protesters and riot police. Police repeatedly fired tear gas and flashbangs, while protesters responded by throwing flares, and dozens of demonstrators were detained. Before the protest began, organizers issued an ultimatum to President Vučić, demanding that he announce an election before 9 p.m. local time. Vučić, however, clearly rejected this demand before the deadline. He repeatedly claimed that their protests were part of a foreign conspiracy to undermine the local government. Riot police were deployed in large numbers around government buildings, the parliament, and the nearby Pionirsky Park. At the same time, large numbers of Vučić's supporters gathered to hold counter-protests. Andreas Tursa, an analyst at Teneo Consulting, noted that, whether large or small, the protests may continue in the short term, reflecting increasing dissatisfaction with the current government. Any attempt to suppress peaceful protests could trigger more violence and strong public backlash. He also pointed out that Vučić had previously consolidated power through early elections, but refused to meet protesters' demands for early voting this time. Under the ongoing student protests, on August 1st, Tomislav Momirović, the former Serbian Minister of Construction, Transport and Infrastructure, and Nebojša Čurlin, the former CEO of the state-owned railway infrastructure company, along with 11 others, were arrested in connection with the collapse of the Novi Sad railway station roof. According to Reuters, a statement from the Serbian Prosecutor's Office for Organized Crime indicated that 6 suspects were accused of issuing fake invoices involving 2 companies, China Railway International Company and China Communications Construction Group. They were responsible for the reconstruction of Novi Sad Station and the railway tracks. The suspects are accused of causing a loss of $115 million to the Serbian national budget, while the Chinese companies illegally profited $18.8 million. This statement confirms that the Chinese Communist Party used a Belt and Road initiative to export corruption to participating countries. In recent years, Serbia has become a key country for China's expansion and investment policy in Europe. Located on the Balkan Peninsula, Serbia has a complex historical background. It emerged from the Communist Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and has natural ties with China. After the breakup of Yugoslavia in the early 1990s, Serbia and Montenegro reformed into the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, led by Serbia. In 2006, Montenegro became independent and the federation dissolved, with Serbia also becoming an independent nation. Unlike other Eastern European countries, Serbia has neither joined the European Union nor NATO. Instead, it has fostered close relations with authoritarian countries like Russia and China. The Chinese Communist Party even views Serbia as its closest ally in Europe, elevating its status above traditional ally Pakistan, with state media referring to it as stronger than Pakistan. In recent years, China has vigorously promoted the Belt and Road Initiative in Balkan countries, viewing the region as a gateway and foothold for its entry into Europe. In 2016, Serbia became the first European country to respond to the Belt and Road Initiative. China has invested heavily in infrastructure projects in Serbia, including the Novi Sad railway station, the Hungary-Serbia railway, bridges, highways, and copper mining projects. Like other Belt and Road projects globally, these investments have brought development funding and job opportunities to the region, but have also raised concerns about environmental pollution, debt traps, and labor rights violations. In 2023, Voice of America aired a documentary titled Tinderbox, Belt and Road, China in the Balkans. Director Samuel George explained that Tinderbox represents both the ongoing tensions in the Balkan region, the great power influences, and geopolitical maneuvering behind the situation. The documentary primarily focuses on China's Belt and Road projects in Serbia and Montenegro, examining China's secretive and opaque investments and their impacts. In an interview with Voice of America, director Samuel George stated that while there's nothing inherently wrong with China investing in the Balkans, his main concern is the lack of transparency. He raised the questions: what are the terms of the deals? Where did the money go? What are the environmental impacts? What are the labor standards? Who is working there? In the documentary, the Zici Mining Company's acquisition of Bor copper mine in eastern Serbia is shown to have led to frequent mining and blasting, which caused cracks in the walls of nearby residents' houses and pollution in the surrounding environment. At a construction site for the Shandong Linlong tire factory, Vietnamese laborers are shown living in overcrowded, basic bunk dormitories with no water or electricity. In Montenegro, a 25-mile highway built by a Chinese company cuts through mountainous valleys. However, this small country with a population of just over 600,000 now faces a $100 billion debt to China. The Chinese-built highway represents only one-third of the planned road. Public loan agreements show that China can seize assets in the event of default, but other documents related to the highway are classified. Critics in the documentary argue that China has simply exploited the political and geopolitical opportunities it sees in local governments. Meanwhile, Chinese state media claim that Belt and Road projects have brought prosperity to the region and continue to receive good reviews. According to the Balkan Investigative Reporting Network, since China launched the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013, there have been 136 Chinese projects in the Balkans, worth over 32 billion euros. However, the organization points out that most of these projects face allegations of corruption, exploitation, and environmental damage. China's cooperation with Serbia has significantly expanded in recent years, with more than 30 collaborative projects launched between the two countries. China is currently Serbia's largest foreign investor, and their bilateral trade reached a record 8.3 billion euros last year. Serbia's growing reliance on Chinese loans has also become a potential problem. Belt and Road projects are often accompanied by large loans, and Serbia's debt burden may pose a future risk. Some analysts are concerned that Serbia could fall into a debt trap, similar to Sri Lanka and Pakistan. This dependence not only limits Serbia's autonomy, but also increases public skepticism towards the government economic policies. Additionally, it's noteworthy that on April 9, 2022, 6 Chinese Air Force Y-20 transport planes landed in Belgrade's civilian airport. Reports indicated that these planes delivered the Chinese-made HQ-22 surface-to-air missile system to Serbia's military. Serbia thus became the first European country to use these Chinese missiles. Experts believe that the transportation of weapons over airspace of at least 2 NATO member countries, Turkey and Bulgaria, highlights China's expanding global ambitions. In 2020, Serbia also received the Chengdu Winglong-1 drones, which can be armed with bombs and missiles to strike targets and be used for reconnaissance missions. Serbia has been strengthening its military with weapons from both China and Russia, including fighter jets, combat tanks, and other equipment. At the time, U.S. officials warned Serbia not to purchase China's HQ-22 air defense system, known as FK-3 in its export version. The country was seeking to obtain EU membership at the time. U.S. officials stated that if Serbia truly wanted to join the EU and other Western alliances, it would need to align its military equipment with Western standards. Analysis suggests that if the students continue to protest, government corruption scandals escalate, and EU pressure increases, the resignation of President Vučić could become a real possibility. If Vučić steps down, the new government may reassess its relationship with China and limit further cooperation. Furthermore, Serbia's economy is highly integrated with the EU, and culturally, it leans more towards Russia and the West. If the future government leans towards strengthening relations with the EU, or even joining the EU, China's influence in Serbia would face setbacks, and quitting the group may become a possibility.